what's happening? This is Kenny from Tribe Table Talk, and we on here with another episode. It's been a while, but we back. We got my boy Calvin here with me.
What up, though?
Just me and him rocking today. Just two of us. We are continuing to the series about the top 10 most common issues in marriage. And today we are touching on selfishness. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
As we know, two people coming together to become one. And when two people commit themselves to each other, it's not about just you and I. It's about we and us. Two people merging their worlds together. And you ain't living the bachelor. She ain't the bachelorette no more. You know what I'm saying? And now it's like, now you have to realize that you have to die to yourself because it's a whole other person. You know, you get married, you move in with each other. You know what I mean? You know, you realize that you don't have the bachelor pad anymore. She started decorating the crib, putting flowers, you know, where your posters used to be. You know what I mean? So it's marriage comes with new challenges, man. So and it comes with new challenges that dating doesn't give you. So you really have to learn how to really learn that concept of being selfless and incorporating that other person's life, incorporating that other person's interests, and realizing that it's not all about you. So let's touch on it today. We're gonna put it all on the table, baby.
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Yeah, so I really had to sit back and think about this topic a little bit into my earlier years in marriage. And even, you know, some of my examples even now of this, you know, the topic of selfishness. I definitely can say that there was a period in my life, a period in my marriage where I really had to learn some lessons, you know, and I really had to realize how much of this marriage thing is God using marriage to mold me and shape me into a better man, you know, because, you know, there's a lot going on. You know, you live a life, you know, a certain way. You have certain routines, you know, you have certain habits and stuff like that. And when you get married, some of that shifts a little bit, you know, because now you have to, and doesn't, you know, you're dating and it's kind of the fact too, but when you get married, it's intensified. Well, now this person is a part of your life. Now you're there, you know, you have to serve this person and meet their needs, you know. So, you know, you might have been golfing every week with the homies, you know. Now that's the time when your wife want to sit down and watch a movie with you, you know. So so it's like, you know, how do you deal with that? How do you have those kind of conversations? And, you know, how do you you know, kind of make those, I guess, those adjustments, you know, and because there's many times in my life where I've realized, you know, man, I was just thinking kind of about myself in that moment, or, you know, this particular thing, you know, I'm really not bringing her or considering her feelings or her emotions into this thing. So, yeah, it's definitely, you know, marriage is not for the weak-hearted. This is what I always tell people.
Yeah.
Marriage is not for the weak-hearted. You know, you see some of the strongest established celebrities and people, and they can conquer the world. But they can't hold on to a wife, or they can't hold on to a husband, because marriage is not for the weak. You know what I'm saying? So I always tell that to people. That's honestly, a lot of times, that's how I measure sometimes, like how strong a man really is. You can be strong physically.
That's good.
You know what I mean? Like you can be strong physically. You can be the most successful businessman. You know what I mean? You can be conquering the world in a lot of other areas and people look up to you. But the real battle is marriage.
Yeah. When you think about it, it's like, I feel like marriage is like the truest test of character you could ever have. Because you go through all these challenges and, you know, it's you're tested in all these ways, especially in regards to selfishness, but it really pushes you to, like you said, be a better person, because you really have to die to your own fleshly desires all the time. You really have to become one with another person, and you have to consider the other person. You have to be able to, live together and do life together. And, like you said, it's the truest test of character I could ever find. But I feel like that's the biggest thing for me is, if you can't submit to Christ, it's going to be tough to be submissive in marriage. Mm-hmm. And that's why I feel like the foundation of marriage has to be Christ.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't have said it better. You're right. Truest test of character, man. It's one thing to conquer other things, but how it's difficult to conquer yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I've really learned in my life when it comes to like just trying to grow as a person, grow as a husband, as a father. And you realize that, sometimes God brings to light something, a habit you may have, and you like, you wouldn't even realize this, you're doing something or you live in a certain way, or you have a certain habit. It takes God to kind of show that light. And you're like, man, I didn't even realize, I know, for example, like when I first got married, I was kind of lazy in a way, like I didn't realize all that comes into maintaining a marriage, maintaining a home, mm-hmm. And a lot of my life would just be like work and chill, work, play video games, chill, hey, I work today, so I'm chilling, I'm tired, and my wife sometimes would be like, well, you got to do this. And, and I would take it as, stop nagging me.
Yeah.
I would take it as that, my immature self. But then as time went by, her nagging started to be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, the car broke down because I didn't take it to go get that small thing checked that turned into a big problem when she told me. Or, man, the grass got really long because I wasn't listening to her the other day when she told me to cut it when it was short. All these different things around the house, just like little chores around the house, really wrap them. The Lord I hadn't really wrapped my mind around maintaining a home as a man yet. I still had a kind of like that apartment mentality, but it took many years for her to kind of, and sometimes like you going into selfishness as well. Sometimes, like I had to learn how to listen to my wife, because I was a hard-headed husband. It's like, yeah, all right, I heard you, but kind of one way and not the other. And then I started realizing that I would get positive results when I actually listened to my wife.
Yeah. Funny how that works.
Right. It's funny how that works, right? And so I really had to like grasp my mind around, okay, I did work, but I gotta go help her with the baby. And yes, I want to sit and plop myself on the couch, but that would be selfish because she's doing this and she's doing, and this is a time where my wife is kind of a stay-at-home mom now, but that's what she used to work full time too. And it would be like, just want to chill, like, but I have all these things I need to help her around the house, or, I got this thing that's been sitting around that, that hasn't been fixed because every day I'm investing all this time into playing video games or whatever I like to do, rather than turning that off for the sake of the family and saying, okay, I got to take care of this. Give me, is that something that you ever ran into yourself? Or
yeah. And so for me, it's like my wife's love language is acts of service. Yeah. So I had to really catch on quick, to really show love to my wife is serving her.
Yeah.
And doing things for her and doing things that make her life easier. So it took me a while to figure that out. And so, she she works full time, I work full time, and earlier on in our marriage, it's like she'd be just as tired as I am, and that would hinder the marriage a little bit in our relationship, just because I wasn't so focused on, what I was doing for her. And it was always just about like, how do I keep myself, entertained? How do I keep myself energetic? And things like that, and not really considering her. And so it took me a while to figure that out. And so now we do things together a lot more. Right. And my activities are not, I have limited of just activities that I do by myself. Yeah. A lot of those activities involve her, involve the kids now. Right. And so it's like trying to bring that all together, and it just made a happier home. Right.
Right. And I just know that some of us, I think a lot of men out there, we have to learn how to kind of grow up a little bit. Mm-hmm. Some of us didn't have fathers in the home. Some of us didn't really have examples of how to be a husband. You know what I mean? So I think that some of us in our, getting married sometimes at early ages, not really understanding what it even means to be a man. You know what I mean? On top of that, to complicate that even more, how to be a man of God. So sometimes I think that, like I said, we talked about earlier, just it's a true test of character. And I think a lot of men sometimes buckle under the pressure, and I'm not saying that, wives got it all perfect and they're doing everything right too, because that can play a factor too, obviously, because a lot of women are not, don't know an example of a godly wife either. Growing up sometimes in single mom homes, having examples of, divorce in their marriage. In their lives. So it's like going to this marriage sometimes, not realizing that that's when the real fight starts. It's funny because like, sometimes I love it when I see people get married. It's exciting, but then I'm like, now they're gonna see what the real battle is like. So like you're happy for them, but you're like, oh,
here we go.
They're gonna have a whole different tone in about a year. You know what I'm saying? Like because like you shared an awesome video in our chat where the gentleman was preaching about marriage, and he said it's so true. He said it can be the worst, marriage can be the worst thing ever, or it can be the most beautiful thing ever. And I can so relate to what he said. And pretty much, without saying his stuff word for word, he said the level of success coincides with the level at which you die to yourself. That's so true, man. How many marriages have ended because one or more people are not willing to die to themselves? You know what I'm saying? How many marriages are maybe even still alive, but just like not close to the truest potential because one person is selfish and the other person is just kind of like, you know what, that's just how he is. Or that's how she is. And, it shouldn't, we should, that's one of the things I hate hearing. Like, hey, how come your husband, why did you? Well, that's just how he is. I just deal with it for the sake of, peace in the home. And it's like, nah, man, it should be, when it comes to changing or it comes to growing, whatever, eliminating something that needs to be eliminated, it should be nothing off the table, man, when it comes to marriage. Nothing should be off the table. Nothing should be so ingrained or so stubborn about it. It's like,
You can't move on it. Right. Yeah. That's important. This is one of the most important things in marriage, I think, for sure. And it's no coincidence that I feel like this is one of the most common ways, marriages end up in divorce. It's that stubbornness and not willing to do the things that you have to do to sustain the marriage that you signed up for.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So yeah, it's a daily battle for sure. And like I said, that's why I feel like the foundation of marriage should always be, like we've been saying before, it's like, if you're not a man of God, or being a man of God qualifies you to be a husband, in my eyes, according to the Bible. You know what I'm saying? So if if you're not getting those teachings from Christ and understanding what it means to follow Christ, then it's going to be tough for you to marriage,
right?
Because you're not already in that mindset of, I'm, growing. I'm going to continue my heart is softening rather than hardening and being stuck in my ways. That's not your mindset if you're for a Christ follower. So,
right.
Yeah, like you said, that is a sad situation when, no one's just willing to change or just willing to be stuck in their ways.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there are times where I had to really like realize that as a husband, there may be something that I may not like to do, or a perspective that my wife may have, and I don't necessarily like it, but I have to consider it, and and sometimes even acknowledging that she's right about something. Like there, I and sometimes in marriage, a lot of times I've realized that you grow, but sometimes the growth is slow.
Yeah.
Very rarely is change like just you get this epiphany and then overnight, boom, you're good. It's like sometimes like, like when I was talking about earlier about being more responsible and maintaining the house, and, that was something that took time, because in the beginning it would be like, it would cause an argument, or, hey, stop nagging me, leave me alone, or whatever. Like, I did take care of this. What you talking about? And then, it just took some years and growth and maturity and prayer.
Maturity, for sure.
Because you can pray for something multiple times, but sometimes God would just deal with you sometimes in the most minute moment. And a lot of times in marriage too is just soul searching too, man. Like just me soul searching myself. How can I better this? Sometimes, look, man, in marriage, sometimes when you've had enough arguments, you realize, okay, something got to change.
Yeah.
So I don't have to have these arguments anymore, or I don't have to have these discussions anymore, or you know what I mean? Like, maybe and at that time you can't be off the table. It's got to be like, okay, maybe there's something about myself that I need to change.
Yeah. And like you said, you can pray about a thing, and over and over and over. And in most cases for me, it's like God had to reveal, like he had to change me. It wasn't always trying to change her.
Right.
Even though I was praying for that, it's like, oh no, let her open her eyes to this and that and this. Like, well, no, actually, you need to stop being a little bit more selfish.
Right.
Or stop being so selfish in this area, or you need to change your heart in this area.
Right.
And that's usually the outcome. It's like I had to adjust myself and my thinking, my thought process on the whole situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And God be like, you praying for her to see this and see that. And God's like, okay, I hear you, but you need to do this. Right. I'm gonna start with you.
Yeah. And then, sometimes that's the answer. And then, then that those things start to change in her, where I was looking at or praying about, but I had to start with me first. And I had to, whatever it was, I had to maybe be the example for it, or I just had to change my whole mindset on it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the challenge, man. Like, back to my example, like I had to help my wife. She I think for a while she didn't really think that sometimes her opinion was as valuable to me. Sometimes I would just kind of be like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I did research on this, and she would say, well, what about this? And I'd be like, all right, but I would just kind of do, make decisions sometimes, trusting in my own wisdom and own knowledge, and, over time I had to learn that, man, God had to reveal to me, like, listen to her. She has some wisdom, listen to her, as husbands, man, we got to learn to listen to our wives, because sometimes they on to something, because as men, we just kind of take it upon ourselves to make decisions. Like, I got this, and we just kind of like, as men, sometimes we just take charge, And we put the pedal to the metal, but sometimes our wives are like, hold on, slow down. And we're like, oh, baby, I got it. Don't worry about it. I got it, And sometimes the Lord had to deal with me and like, no, listen to her. She know what she's talking about, or like the Lord sometimes like, I realize in my own life that the Lord is using her to speak to me.
Right.
Sometimes, because, there are times where like, man, I'll be praying or like, I feel like I have a heavy prayer life. I'm seeking God every morning and I'm going in and I'm interceding and all that. And I felt like I wouldn't really hear from God. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and my wife sometimes would pray once. She'd be like, man, you know what the Lord said to me this morning? I'd be like, what? Lord spoke to you this morning? And she was like, yeah, the Lord told me this and that and this and that. I'd be like, dang, Lord, why you don't speak to me like that? You know what I'm saying? Like, she, and she, I had to start learning, like, man, I gotta really listen to her. And then like, there's been so many times, bro, like I can sit here and give you so many examples if I could think of them, but it's just so funny. So many times where like, she would say something to me and I'd be like, all right, and I'll just let it sit. And then I wouldn't really follow her advice, but then like a year later or later down the line, I'm like, hey, baby, you were right. I did this and I did that and it worked. And she'd be like, I told you. And like sometimes I think back, like, why didn't I really listen to her the first time? So I had to, in my own life, speaking on selfishness, I had to, teach myself to listen to her. Her opinion is valuable. And, I have to really sit down and be like, okay, let me not try to act like a know-it-all, but
yeah.
And I think there was a time where she didn't think her opinion was valuable. And I think she doesn't think that as much now because, I'm more like softer towards what she's telling me. You know what I mean?
No, I think every husband has to go through that battle.
Yeah.
Especially when they're really trying and really wanting the marriage to work. Yeah. So I definitely, I can relate 100%. Where at times where I'm just like, okay, that's a good idea. Great.
Right.
But I'm gonna do this though.
Right.
But then, God had to really deal with me on that. And I found out, like, just when I do listen to her, things go better. Right. And it's just like the conversation, and this comes down to communication too. It's like you have to be willing to talk about everything. Yeah. And like I said, communication was tough in my marriage, especially early on. So like you said, just being hard-headed and wanting to do everything on my own accord and not talking to her about everything.
Right.
And but not talking about certain situations or just not valuing her opinion on the whole thing. So yeah, I can definitely relate.
Yeah. But I go down all the way to the way I dress. When I first, but when I first started getting married, or when I first got married, I had a certain way I dressed. And she used to be like, I want you to wear this. I used to be like, I'm not wearing that. Them tight pants, I'm not wearing that. Like, oh, that shirt ugly. You know what I mean? And she's, so like later down the line, I would be like, she would start dressing me. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Like I would just reluctantly like, all right, I'll get that, whatever. Like she would pick out stuff at the store that I wouldn't even give the time of day. You know what I mean? So I would put it on. And then, I'm at church or wherever in the public, people are like, hey man, nice shirt. Hey man, nice pants, man. I'm like, hold on. I started realizing something, like, hold on. And then I would come home and I would be like, hey baby, you know what? Some people, I got a lot of compliments on my shirt today. She's like, you did you? And I was like, yeah. And then, it had to happen like 2 or 3 more times where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start listening to my wife when she tries to dress me, because that's when I get the most compliments.
Hey, my wife tried to put me in the jeans, what they call those, where they got the little rips in them, the little pants with the little rips in them. I'm like, baby, I can't do those. I'm sorry. Like, I'll listen to you all these other times, but I can't do those.
Right. You're like,
I end up caving though. I got me a pair.
Did you find yourself getting more compliments?
Oh, I mean, not on the ripped jeans yet. I ain't brought them out yet. I'm scared too.
So you haven't worn them though. You just bought them.
No, she bought them for me. Like, first of all, she bought the light jeans and it was too many rips. And I'm like, I can't do these. Like, I just can't. Then she bought another pair, a darker pair. They had less rips in them, a little bit more subtle. I was like, okay, yeah, we can compromise here. So I ain't pulled them out yet, but yeah.
Oh, that's funny, bro.
Should address me.
That's funny, bro. That's funny. There's been like you ever been chilling at home, your wife out shopping, and then she just brings something home, and she's like, "Hey, look, this is what I bought for you," and you like you don't want to tell her like that's no, I don't want to wear that, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's funny, man. Like, you know, I used to laugh because, like I said, there'd be times where, you know, she would get something for me and I would put the outfit on, and in my mind, I'm like, I can't stand, I don't like this. And then just walking past people and like, hey man, them jeans look good on you, man. Like, you know, so it just started to realize, oh, okay, all right. And I still have my times where I'm like, I'm not wearing that. But there are times where I'm like, I go up to her, hey baby, this shirt look good with this, because I trust her fashion sense.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Exactly. And it's like, yo, she the only woman I gotta please anyways. So it's like, why not wear the stuff that
she likes,
turns her on? You know, exactly. She likes me in. Right.
I was just gonna say that. You know, like that's part of dying to self too. Right. It's like, I want to wear this, but you know, she likes me in these certain type of clothes. So why would I not wear it?
Right. You know, exactly. Yeah. You know, as long as it's not nothing too crazy.
Yeah. I ain't coming out with the floral
shirt on. Nah, I ain't coming out with the I'm coming out with the romper on. Yeah.
That's where I draw the line.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, man, that was something that I just kind of like thought of too when it's on, you know, when it comes to selfishness. But yeah, man. Yeah. Man, next month it'll be 13 years I've been married.
Next month? Anniversary?
Yeah. Wow. 13 years. And
like that last year went by quick. Feel like y'all just went on y'all little vacation together.
Yeah, it does. That's how it does feel like that. Wow. Yeah.
Years flying.
It is, man. 13 years, bro. That's a long time. But praise God, you know what I'm saying? And I've grown so much, man. And even in this last year, like there's never a period where you should stop growing. Yeah. You know, there's never a period where you should always be kind of looking how you can die to yourself and your marriage. And then especially when you put kids in the mix too. Yeah. You know, because you know, I have to die to self when it comes to my kids, because you know, when I come home from work, I can't just plop on the couch and just relax once again. You know, I got a 9-year-old that wants to play with me. I got a 7-year-old that wants to talk with me. I got a 3-year-old that wants to play fight with me, you know, and they require energy from me. Yeah. You know, and it's so easy for me to just be like, all right, I'm home, get on my phone, jump on, you know, lay on the couch because I'm tired and just leave me alone. You know, but there have been times where, you know, I come home and I'm like, all right, I gotta push myself. You know, it actually kind of motivates me to get in shape physically, because you know, when you're in shape, it's just that stuff don't come as hard. You know, it's just like you're already in shape, so it's like coming home even after a long day at work, or you know,
still got energy.
You still got energy, yeah, exactly. And you know, and they, you know, the kids are so happy when daddy comes home, and it's like I immediately have to jump into dad mode, even though my mind is like, bro, just go. I want to go take a nap. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's probably the most killing of self for me right now, currently in my life, is coming home and I got 3 kids, giving them energy, and my body got to do this, but my mind is like, man, go take a nap, or man, I can't wait till the kids go to bed. You know, and it's like, no, you know, it's just it's a battle.
Yeah,
it's a battle. Right. And I know you got 2 at home. Do you deal with that too?
Yeah, for sure. And especially with the homeschooling aspect of it. Yeah. You know, I don't always feel like doing that or going through all these lessons and all these transitions and stuff like that. So, it really takes some endurance to really, give them everything. 'Cause I don't want to just like cheat them, especially in their early ages, and cheat them out on being the best father I can be. You know what I'm saying? So it really does take some endurance and some prayer as well, but some willpower to snap out of it and really give them everything I can give them.
Right.
And not shortcut, especially with my wife too, who also needs my attention, who draws on my energy and my attention. So it's like you said, it's like, being healthy is a big part of that. Staying in your relationship with Christ is a big part of that, giving you that endurance to keep going and to love your wife, love your kids, and things like that. So that's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah. And there are times where I had to learn that, there are times where I had to learn that my kids deserve the best of me. You can't, like, I would start to feel guilty that, back in the day when I used to work with kids, at-risk youth, I would give them a lot of my energy, a lot of my time, sometimes stressed out. It wasn't an easy job, very challenging job. And by the time I come home, I'm exhausted. I don't want to talk to no kids. I just talk to kids all day. And I had to realize I can't give them my best and then come home and give my kids the leftovers.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's what I had to learn that too. Like, my children deserve their father at his best, So that was a real kind of like something that I used to deal with and struggle with too. Is how I got to give my kids all of me. That's what they deserve, me, not just tired, leave me alone. But just give them my energy, regardless of the sacrifice.
Regardless,
it would be a sacrifice. It would definitely be a sacrifice. And sometimes, you spoke about my wife needs my attention too. She does. And sometimes when you work and you have kids, sometimes that time with your wife is not even until the kids go to bed. It's like, it's crazy because there are times where I come home most of the time and it's like, okay, the kids, me and my wife will kind of touch base on how the day was and she might be cooking dinner, and then a lot of times it's kids. Hey, let's take them to the park. Let's do this. Let's do that. Whatever. And it's not really till, like, I don't know, the evening when the kids are kind of winding down, where it's like you really get to sit down and actually have one-on-one time with your spouse uninterrupted.
Tail end of the day.
But that's where the selfishness come into right now for me, because there are times where it's like after that work, after playing with the kids, I want to just go downstairs and play the PS4 and just wind down. But my wife also needs my attention too. But then she's watching her favorite TV show because she wants to wind down too. So it's like, I don't know. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, my wife shared this crazy stat with me yesterday from a podcast she was listening to. She was saying that on average, couples or married couples spend on average 4 minutes a day with like quality conversation between them. Like, not just like, hey, do this, do that, we cooking, do this with the kids, and not like quality one-on-one conversation is only about 4 minutes a day on average.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And it was crazy when she said it. I'm like, there's no way. Then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, yeah. I'm thinking about my own marriage. I was like, we literally both work. We come home, some homeschooling with the kids, or kids got things to do. We running around with them. They got a lot of energy. Like, I'm down there with Junior playing the game. She's up there doing Sailor's hair. We got somewhere to go today. We at grandma's house. We here, there. And then we don't end up talking. Maybe we end up talking at the end of the night, or maybe we just put the kids down and we watching a movie and we just pass out. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm like, That's crazy to think
That is
about.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah. Some people, I mean, sometimes our lives are so busy, especially when we have kids and, you have different interests. Like my wife, sometimes she watches TV shows that I'm not really into.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes, and she's not really into the PS4 or whatever, or even into shows that I like. So sometimes, even at the end of the night, we find ourselves in separate rooms in the house, and then there are times where, because we all have our things that we do to wind down and to just kind of have time for ourselves, whether it's you know, playing basketball or, watching movies, playing video games, whatever it is that you do to wind down and just have you time.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those can be different from your spouse, um, she watches TV shows and I'm like, I don't really like that. I'm gonna go down here and do my thing,
Mm-hmm.
and we're both kind of just trying to have that relaxation and have that time where we're just kind of, just us, or just our you time or me time or whatever. But then, yeah, I totally can see that being a reality because there are times where, like I said, after kids, after work, after, all the responsibilities, cleaning the house, whatever. And then we kind of have our us time. I look up and it's like bedtime. And I'm like, man, I didn't even barely even have a conversation with my wife today.
Right.
Right. And, there's a time where both spouses, both of us need to cut off whatever we're doing and just come together and be like, hey, and just have a conversation. That increases the intimacy so much.
So much.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife will tell me a lot, like during the week. She's like, I just feel like we haven't connected.
Yeah.
Like she was saying it yesterday because it was just like a long week this week, with conference and all that stuff at work. But
I can relate.
Yeah, it's like she says that often. Actually, it's like, man, I just feel like we just haven't connected. We haven't spoke all day.
Yeah.
And she reminds me of that, and I'm so glad she does that. But yeah, it gives you perspective of like how much running and gunning we do all day.
Yeah.
And not have that and not talk and not connect with your wife. It's easy to flow like that every day, all day. So you really have to be intentional about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's, and this goes on to the topic, man, like selfishness. Like there are times where you have to cut off your favorite TV show and sit down and spend time with your spouse. Sometimes you may have to cut off the game, fellas, to, hey, I haven't spent time with my wife all week, or I haven't really had a quality conversation with my wife all week. Let me sacrifice this Call of Duty real quick, or this 2K real quick, and let's sit down and just have a quality conversation with my wife. The screens can get in the way of that, man.
Yeah, this one too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the screens. Yeah, and
all of them.
Yeah, because it's like at the end of the day, you're tired and you want to just chill and you want to just do your thing. But every now and then, I'm not saying this, we have our routines. Don't get me wrong, she's watching her show and I'm downstairs watching my show or whatever. I understand that sometimes spouses have different interests and different likes and dislikes. But yeah, every now and then, if you feel like you haven't checked in a while, man, take the time to cut that TV off, man. It's worth it. You
really have to have an awareness in your marriage about that when you feel like, you're not connecting as much. Right. And most of the times there's signs, there's, I don't know, maybe there's a little bit of a tension that builds up sometimes when there's a lack somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just have to really be willing to do that. And you really have to, like you said, when it's like, I've cut back video games, like stuff I do on my own a lot, especially this year.
Yeah.
And then as my kids get older too, it's just like that stuff it's not as important as it used to be. To me. It's really not at the heart of the matter is not that important.
It's so important to be present, man. Like,
that's the priority.
You talked about greatly reducing Facebook or video games, and I've greatly reduced social media in my life. When I started realizing how much time I was spending and just how much of a distraction it was. Mm-hmm. And my wife would even tell me, and we have our battles where it's like you know, she would say that I'm on my phone too much. And I'll be like, well, you're on TikTok all day, you know? And it's like, cause that's her thing. That's, you know, she's always scrolling TikTok. And I was on Facebook a lot, you know, and I started to realize, man, we really started to look at how much time you're actually spending doing those things. It's like, man, this is time that I could be spending doing this. So this is time that we can be actually having conversation. We're in the same room with each other, but we're not present with each other. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So
it makes a world difference.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, sometimes when you really do work on yourself, it hurts. Like it hurts. Like real true change and growth sometimes when you're dealing with yourself, it hurts because that's the hardest thing to do sometimes. You know, we have the prescription sometimes, the perfect prescription to change somebody else, perfect prescription of what somebody else should do. You know what I mean? Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. But when it comes to ourselves, man, that's the most painful change sometimes, because you fall into these routines, you fall into these these habits, and they're so ingrained sometimes, you know. So when you actually have to stop, or you actually have to reduce it, it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, you'd be mad.
I was gonna say, it's like when it's too imbalanced,
yeah,
you know, when you have to start pulling away from those things, it's like, okay, fine, I'll just be with my wife, I'll just do stuff with the kids, and it's not even fruitful, it's not even valuable, because you don't really want to do it, you don't really want to be there, you don't really want to connect,
right?
So you have to really, like, I don't know, it takes a lot of self-reflecting.
It does.
Like you said, that's hard to do, and sometimes it's not instant.
Yeah, the Lord has to work on your heart sometimes, man. And there's a lot of times when you have to actually just sit down and realign your priorities, man.
Yeah.
Like, what are your priorities? Is it your, you know, I had to really ask myself, is it my priority to, you know, to always know what's always happening in the world all the time? You know, is that bigger of a priority than being in touch with my kids? You know what I mean? Being in touch with my wife, because, you know, I realized, like, social media, I was like always like in the know of what's going on right when it happened, because I'm always scrolling, and this Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Telegram, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, is that, you know, is that why do I do these things? Ask yourself why you do something so much. You know, ask yourself why you spend so much time doing something. And is that really a priority? You know, because as you grow, as you get married, as you add kids to the mix, your priorities have to shift. You know, what was once important sometimes has to take a back seat. And that's hard. And that's part of growth. You know, I grew a lot when my first child was born. A lot as a man, period. Not even just like, you know, husband, father. As a man, I had to grow up a lot. And one thing I have learned over the years is you may not be who you want to be, but you have to become who you want to be for your kids and for your wife. You know, so you may not grow up how to, let's say, for example, you didn't grow up with how to learn, and your parents didn't do a good job of teaching you how to handle money. That's cool. You have two options. You can spend the rest of your life saying, boo-hoo, my parents never teach me about money, and I'm just gonna be like this for the rest of my life. Or you say, you know what, I got to be a man and learn this on my own. And because this is who I have to be for my family to be where I want it to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a different kind of maturity,
right?
That's when you really coming of age, you know what I'm saying? It's when you try to, like, stop, you know, blaming everybody else, blaming the past, blaming, you know, scenarios, when everything is at the tip of your fingers, you know, especially in this age of information. Like, everything, you can learn any and everything. You know, just really making that decision. Everybody has to decide, you know, who they're going to be and what they want to do. And, you know, if their marriage is going to work, you know, what kind of father they're going to be. You have that choice. You know? And like you said, we have to it's our job to give everything to our marriage, give everything as a father, everything. You know, not just, you know, everything, and our work too. It's like, it's it's a tug and pull everywhere. It's not easy. Not saying that it's easy, but
not at all. Yeah.
Everybody has a choice to make.
Yeah. And a lot of times, and I'll just touch on this lastly, there's a lot of compromise that has to happen in marriage sometimes. We have to meet in the middle. It can't always be, hey, this way works, we're going to do it this way, and vice versa, the wife, we're going to do it this way, because there's sometimes you have to meet in the middle, and sometimes that's the hardest thing for people to do, because you never want to have a time where a spouse just feels like they just never get, they never, I'm trying to say, their ideas or their, I guess going back to even what I was talking about earlier about their opinion being valued, because, you may be used to doing something a certain way, maybe, I've been many times when me and my wife, we'll battle about the smallest things. Like, why you clean the counters this way? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I grew up all my life cleaning the counters like this. You need, what about doing it like this? And so sometimes it's like, whatever, I know what I'm doing. I'm gonna clean it this way. Yeah. But then it's like, okay, well, maybe I can. Like we do things only because sometimes that's how our parents showed us how to do it. Or we had certain habits growing up. And so we bring it to the marriage. And sometimes a wife is like, why do you do it like that? It's like, I don't know. I just grew up doing it like that. And then you like,
what I know.
You're right. It's like, oh, okay. I didn't think of it like that. And sometimes you might change up a little bit, for the sake of your spouse, sometimes to keep them happy, sometimes to shut them up, and that can go all the way from the minute things to, cleaning the kitchen to, all the way to something bigger, so because there has to be sometimes some meet in the middle,
Yeah. And that keeps bringing me back. And I feel like I keep using the same verse for everything. I feel like it does apply. It's like 1 Corinthians 13. Love is not self-seeking. At the end of the day, it's like you can't, and I was, talking to my wife about this, like, or she was asking the question, it's like, can you be selfish and sustain a marriage? Like, there's just no room for it at all. It's like you have to be in that mindset of, servanthood.
Right.
And like I said, the foundation of that is Christ.
Right.
Like,
absolutely.
Christ teaches you how to be a servant in all these areas.
Yeah.
Including marriage.
Yeah.
And that's really have to be the mindset that you walk with in your marriage. And as a father, it's not self-seeking. I'm not seeking every day constantly of how I can please myself and what's good for me and how I can feel better about this and that. I have to be looking out for my family. Like that's my job as a husband, as a father.
Yeah.
As a man.
Yeah. Yeah. And God know what he's doing, man. He brings two people together who complement each other, and God uses marriage to forge us into better men. To chisel us into men with more godly character. You know what I'm saying? And it's a battle, but too many men give up, man. And like I said, the wives play a part too. Don't get me wrong, but there comes a time where, many times in my marriage where it's like, either I got to change, or this marriage ain't gonna last.
Yeah.
Do I want, kind of, marriage at 75%, or do I want this marriage to live up to its highest potential?
Yeah.
Where we're the happiest and we're the most satisfied and we're the most, where we enjoy each other the most, or who wants to have a marriage where just kind of like you're just going through the motions, and you're just together for the kids, or you're just together in this way, You know, no, I want to live. If I'm going to be a part of this thing for life, I'm going to enjoy it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's not bondage.
Right.
It doesn't have to feel like that, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't have, exactly. And that's why I think so many people are scared of marriage. You know, there's so many people that I know right now that are shacking up together for years, doing everything a married couple does. You know what I mean? Sleeping together, you know, living together, you know, paying the bills together. But for some reason, they're not getting married. And I really had to sit down and think about that. Like, why are so many people doing everything a married couple does, but not really making it official? And some of it makes me wonder if it's fear. Like, people scared that once the ring comes on, it's like, it gets real. Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Ain't no turning back.
Right.
I always want to have that way out, you know?
Right. Or that way out.
That's what I would think.
You know, and it's like, I think that, you know, so many people have just went through failed marriages, and it's like, they don't even want to deal with it. Just, you know, it's like, but it's like, you're doing everything a married couple does anyways. You know what I mean? It's like, and I don't know, I you know, on the spiritual aspect, I think that's, you know, marriage is when the spiritual warfare takes place, from my perspective, you know. And I think that if you ain't grounded in Christ,
yeah,
you're going to get beat down.
Yep. Every time.
You know?
Every time.
And even, you know, and there's a lot of people who aren't Christians who have a long marriage, I would say. You know, some people would argue, I'm not a Christian, but yeah, I've been married 50 years, whatever. Okay, cool. I think that apart from Christ, it really is not going to be up to its fullest potential.
Yeah.
You know,
you're going to be settling for a lot of things, you know, and that's a testimony I hear for a lot of couples that are not, you know, that I know that are not, you know, grounded in Christ. It's like, it's more like a burden. Marriage is like a burden almost.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a lot of complaining about, you know, what the other one isn't doing, or, you know what I mean? Or how tough it is, rather than the fruit of it, rather than, you know, how rewarding the experience is, rather how rewarding it is to do life with this other person, and how they compliment you, and how you're so much better, how they made you so much better, and things like that. It's always doom and gloom. And so, like you said,
gloom and the old ball and chain, and
exactly,
it's kind of sad. Yeah, it's kind of sad. And I think a lot of people see that and they don't want that. They don't desire that. You know, and when you hear it in that context, you're like, you know, you don't blame them. A lot of people don't want to get married because of what they've seen, you know, or what they've seen from their own parents, or what they've seen in such and such marriage. You know, you see adultery taking place left and right. You know, you see, you know, celebrities A and B, you know, cheating on each other and having 5 or 6 different divorces, and, you know, just people just kind of like, I don't want that, you know. But man, if they can only see how beautiful marriage can be when it's submitted under Christ, man.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's, if you hang in there, you know, for you listening, if you hang in there, man, you're going to be better for it.
Yeah.
Hang in there, because marriage causes you to grow. And it ain't just for the husband. The wives grow too.
Yeah.
Wives, listen to your husbands. They know what they're talking about. And they have, you know, you guys, marriage really comes to focus how God had really created and orchestrated this thing for two people to complement each other. You know, you can't meet your own needs. You know, your wife has to meet your needs, and you have to meet her needs.
Yeah.
You know, period. So, you know what I mean? It definitely, I think that marriage really is something that God uses to really perfect us. You know, God created Eve to be a helper to Adam, you know, and because he was like, you know, Adam, it's not good for him to be alone, you know. And, you know, I'm sure that a lot of us can lead a pretty cool life. You know, if I was single as a Christian, maybe even Calvin can be, you know, cool, you know, live a productive life. But it's something about marriage that brings the best out of you.
Yeah.
It's something about somebody next to you that knows everything about you, that really pushes you to the next level. It really puts another perspective that you don't have yourself, to really look at things in a different way and really see things that you don't see, really kind of tend to your blind spots and be like, yo, you know, and it makes you grow in such an exponential way.
Yeah.
You know,
and if it teaches you nothing else, is definitely how to be more selfless.
Right.
You know, I feel like it's probably one of the main lessons that you'll take from marriage is how to be selfless.
Yeah.
And consider others and consider your wife.
Yeah.
Like you said, like a guy definitely uses it as a tool.
Yeah.
As a tool to better you. So we just have to we have to look at it like that. So that's where the mind shift comes on our own behalf, where we have to see it as that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Service. I had to learn how to serve. Once you learn how to serve your wife, man, once you think of it as you serving her and she's serving you, it takes it flips your dynamic, where it's not just me. What can I do for me? How can I get my pleasure? When you think about it as how can I serve her, it changes the whole dynamic. So
if you're thinking about getting married, that's the mindset.
That's the mindset.
You know, if you're not getting married, you know, for yourself or what you can gain for, you're going in to service. You're going into the service.
Right. You're going to the service. You said it like you're going to the military or something.
Straight up.
You're going to the service, yeah.
About to get some full combat training.
Exactly.
Straight up.
Exactly, man. But like I said, man, it's anybody who's watching, listening, consider that, you know, every day, wake up with the mentality, you know, you're doing your daily routine, you're praying for yourself, you're praying for your family, you're going to work. And at the end of the day, one of the questions you should ask yourself is, how can I serve my wife today? You know, what ways have I been slacking in serving her? Can I get back on? You know, and for the wives that may be listening, you know, ask yourself that same question. How can I serve my husband today? You know, so.
That's good.
That's all I got, man.
That's great, sir.
Yeah, man. So this is the episode. I think this is 19. 19. Yeah, episode 19. Holler at us. Check us out on Facebook. Like us on YouTube. Hope you guys like the new intro. So this will be the first video where I get to post the new intro. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't that work?
Yeah, trying. You know what I mean? So we, like I said, we're always trying to up the production value, and hopefully we'll have all 4 of us next episode.
Tribe.
All right. This is the tribe. Holla at y'all.
Peace.